Thank you. Salam sejahtera. Tun, saya Dan dari NDeC. I have two questions. The first, I want to preface with the oft-repeated saying that a politician thinks of the next election, whilst a statesman thinks of the next generation. Appealing to your statesman side, now that you can look back, the new generation of Malaysians will be the Gen Y and the Gen Z. Those born 1985 and later will form 80% of our workforce by 2020. To this generation, when things are changing, when youth unemployment is so high, for example in Europe, what are the types of policies you think this country should put in place so that they can prosper and help lead the country to greater heights by 2020? The other question then relates to your Look East policy which you introduced in your time. That perhaps is akin to who we make friends with as a nation and the allies that will help us in our trek towards development. Today, who are the friends from a global perspective that we should, as a country, be allied to as we move forward in our journey towards 2020? Has that changed at all, or do we continue with the Look East policy? Thank you.
Firstly, although some people think I'm a statesman, I'm basically a politician. Well, I'm conscious of the fact that the present generation lives in a different environment from the generation which grew up together with me or the generation that I was familiar with. Before, we were quite poor and we feel a lot of pressures from outside. You know, when you apply pressure from outside, the inside becomes more solid, more united. In those days, because we were more united, we were able to withstand pressures from outside. Today, you don't feel the pressure and you don't feel a need to unite. You want to think only about yourself. And because you think about yourself and not about the whole community, then there would be conflicts between you. Pardon my saying this, but today we are much more conscious about race than ever before. This shouldn't be. As we progress, as we become more mature, we should talk less and less about race. But because of demands made by one race, there is a response by another race, and the response by another race results in demands by another race, and so on. And this is very bad for the country. So we need to take a proper attitude towards the weaknesses caused by the multiracial composition of our country. Today, of course, we don't go to the same schools anymore. Of course, in my time, we go to the same schools. But now we don't go to the same school, we don't even speak the same language. So it's very difficult for us to think of ourselves as citizens of the same country. We think only of our own community. And that, I think, is bad for politics, is certainly bad for the country. With regard to the Look East policy, who are our friends? I think there's not been much change. Why did we accept or formulate the Look East policy? It is because we think the countries of the East should also be our friends. We were very Western oriented before. We thought that the only progress is the progress made by Western nations. But we decided that we should also look at the Eastern countries. Today we find that the Eastern countries are far better managed than the Western countries. As I said just now, there is a lot of mismanagement in the West. But in the East, the impact is there, but it's not as bad as in the West. Our friends are here in the East. I don't like to see confrontation by any of us against any of the countries in the East. They are all our friends, Japanese, Koreans, Chinese, Taiwanese, and the other ASEAN countries. They are all our friends. And I think outsiders should not come and urge us to confront each other. At the moment there is this attempt to make us encircle China. I think that is too big a country to encircle. And I think that is very negative. You know, when you identify a country as your potential enemy, your enemy in the future, he becomes immediately your present enemy. And when he thinks that you are his enemy, what does he do? He prepares to defend about himself. So when you threaten China with encirclement and trying to block Chinese progress, China now has the money. They will build ever bigger military forces for their defense. And when they do that, they say, oh, look, China is arming itself, so we must arm to fight against China. And the response of China to your arming would be for them to build up even greater military force. There will be confrontation and tension, and this is not good for anyone. So I think countries outside the region should go and look after their own region, because they are not doing well either. Let us solve our problem by ourselves. So who are our friends? Our friends are our neighbors in the East. Thank you.
Then I have the advantage of perhaps winding this down and asking the last questions. This is the fourth year we're doing this conference, where not only government peers actually hear among themselves, but also together with the private sector about how to assist and move government public service delivery even forward using ICT based on what we expounded in Vision 2020 and even in the Northern Pacific Corridor. Today, about 35% of government services is already online. The goal is to do 90% by the year 2015. So perhaps an easy question. Have you used one of them? How about income tax?
I think income tax, that's done by my friend that don't know it. I don't even know how much money I pay. He does everything. So I don't use any of the new facilities.
But actually it was another question. I wanted to know what services have surprised you most that you've heard about, that you're kind of proud that, wow, Malaysia 1981, sekarang boleh buat, things have been talked about, perhaps you can share.
I heard the other day that somebody got his passport on the day he applied. That's great.
As a private citizen also of this country, as receiving services, what would you want to see as a private citizen in services being delivered to you as a private citizen? What would be your dream service, and how would it be delivered?